Theta Kappa. Recording in progress. I'm our Chief Engagement Officer at Phi Theta Kappa, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to an afternoon of learning specifically focused on our two signature chapter projects, Honors in Action and College Project. I will tell you without belaboring the point, which the team will tell you I have a tendency to do, and I'm not going to do today, but I will tell you that my journey with Phi Theta Kappa started when I was, like perhaps some of you, voluntold to be a chapter advisor, knew nothing about Phi Theta Kappa, nothing about Honors in Action, the College Project, but I very quickly realized that if you're passionate about changing the lives of students, passionate about leaving the world better than you found it, and really looking to find ways to get those top student leaders to the next level in their careers, whether it's the workforce or transfer or whatever their goals may be, Phi Theta Kappa is at the heart of that work that is so important. And so here I am today working with our wonderful student engagement team. I see someone says you cannot hear. I think our audio is pretty good, so you might want to turn up the volume. Can everybody else out in the audience comment if you're able to hear, just so we're 100% sure? Okay, I think we're good. If you're able to just turn your volume up, that may be the solution there. So we're going to have a great discussion today about Honors in Action and College Project. And the one thing that will be emphasized by our team here is that you at the chapter level are able to do this. College Project and Honors in Action are the things that draw students in, help them build their resumes, give them skills to advance in their career. And whether you are gunning for, top chapter, which I know some of you may be, or whether you say, we just want to complete these projects to become a 5-star chapter, whatever your goals are, we have a whole team here of student engagement professionals ready to support and help you. You'll have the pleasure today of hearing from 3 of our associate vice presidents who will introduce themselves a little bit later, but I want to make sure before I jump off or at least mute myself, the moment you've all been waiting for, I want to make sure that you know we have 2 chapter outreach and development coordinators that are here to help you with literally anything you need at the chapter level. Ryan Martin is not on here, but if you know Ryan, ryan.martin@ptk.org, and maybe Ryan has joined. If you're there, Ryan, go ahead and wave. But she's on this chat and she can put her email in the chat. Ryan is able to work with you at the chapter level. And also Patty Van Adder. Patty, if you see, if you can wave and then throw your email down in the chat. We have an entire team of people who are here to support and help you as chapter advisors do this great student engagement work. But with that, let me just say thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. Whether you're one of the 83, 84, it keeps going up, advisors that are here on the call, or you're going to watch this later, we are just so excited to partner with you. I can tell you, you are all over, and we at Phi Theta Kappa are all over. Even just on this call, on our student engagement team, we have Patty over in New Jersey, Ryan over in Arizona, Susan Edwards in Houston, Jennifer Stanford up in the Dallas area, Dr. Johanna Williams out in Atlanta. We're all over and doing this work and partnering with you, and we're just so excited to be a part of it. So I'm going to turn it over now to our Associate Vice President for Workforce and STEM Programs, Dr. Johanna Williams. But thank you to everyone for being here and spending your time to learn about this important, life-changing work. Looking forward to a great session.
Thank you, Blake, and hello, everyone. Super excited to be here and so excited to see so many of you on the call today. We're looking forward to sharing a lot of information about 2 of our top programs, and that's Honors in Action and College Project. Just a brief overview of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be sharing with you some of the basics of Honors in Action and giving you some advice about managing the Honors in Action project, and of course, answer some of common questions about the Honors in Action process. We're also going to share some college project basics and answer some of those basic common questions that we get for college project. And of course, we want to answer your questions. We've gotten some really great preliminary questions from you about both Honors in Action and College Project. And so we're going to try to answer as many of those questions as we can today. We have a wonderful panel that are perfectly qualified to share with you. some really good tips about tackling both of these projects. So if you're unmuted, go ahead and mute yourselves just to avoid any interruptions while our panel is talking. And I'm going to introduce our esteemed panel to you, and then we'll sort of migrate into the Honors in Action part. So on our panel today, we have a very special guest, Rob Keel. Rob is the Alpha Xi Pi chapter advisor at Motlow State Community College in Tennessee. And he's going to be sharing some advice and tips for both Honors in Action and college projects. So it's going to be some bouncing back and forth with some good advice for you on both of those projects from Rob. We also have our headquarters staff, Susan Edwards, our Associate Vice President of Honors Programs and Undergraduate Research. And she's going to be talking to you about the Honors in Action process and answering some of your questions about Honors in Action. And then, of course, we have Jennifer Stanford, our Associate Vice President of Program Implementation, and she'll talk to you a lot about College Project and answer some of your College Project questions. And so I think we're ready to jump on in and get started. So I'm going to turn things over to Susan Edwards now and let her talk to you a little bit about Honors in Action.
Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you to everybody for being here, because we know you're really busy at this time of year. And I guess if you're a Phi Theta Kappa chapter advisor at every time of year, really. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to talk with us about Honors in Action and the College Project. I want to start with just some project reminders and a quote from Nelson Mandela. It always seems it's impossible until it's done. Now, Mandela wasn't talking about Honors in Action and the College Project, but he could have been. And we know from experience that it can seem daunting to do these projects, but when people finish them, they say, we're so glad we did that. And Rob's going to talk a little bit about that today from the perspective of an alum who's gone through this process, but we hear it all the time. And so we are so happy that you're really encouraged about working on these projects and learning about them and coaching your students through them. So just some reminders. One is that from Phi Theta Kappa's perspective, 1 or 2 members is all it takes. 2 members are a team. So we get that question all the time. Well, wait, we don't have 10 people who are going to work on this project. You are not alone. There are lots of chapters that don't have 10 people to work on a project. So see, do you have a team of 2? Do you have a really enthusiastic person who's willing to take charge of working on this project, maybe bringing some people in? We have seen chapters who have 1 person who is really engaged, really enthusiastic, and really willing to do some of the hard work and get other people enthused. And I know one of them made it into the top 10 chapters last year, Community College of Rhode Island. That really was on the back of 1 student who was able to just motivate people and do so much of the groundwork and working on it. So please just don't worry if you don't have a huge team starting out. That's okay, you can still do this. Also, take it 1 step at a time. We've had a lot of questions about, can we complete an Honors in Action project and a college project between now and December 31st, when we ask for projects to be completed? And the answer is yes. We see it all the time. And we see wonderful projects. We see people going through the entire process. So you have plenty of time. Now, if you get 8 weeks down the line, you don't have quite as much time anymore. But right now, you have plenty of time to finish. And so getting started and taking it 1 step at a time and going through the processes really does work. And it's a really great way for students to build their skills. You want to lay a foundation to build upon. And Blake mentioned that your chapter may be an award-winning chapter already, and you're just building on all that tradition. You may be starting now and starting to build tradition. And that's okay. Either way, that's a great place to be. It's a great place to be, a top chapter, but it's a great place to build that foundation. And I know Blake mentioned that he had done that in his college. I've had the opportunity to do that when I was a chapter advisor. It's actually really pretty wonderful to be one of the people who helps build that tradition. So don't worry about that. Know that you're there and you may be building that groundwork. The projects connecting to building member skills and achievements, that's something that while this is a team project, these are team projects, they build individual skills as well. And you can build your coaching skills as you go through this process. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we wanted to let you know that in these processes, the final step is to work on Hallmark Award entries. We want to know what you've been working on and what your students have been doing. And it's so helpful to us, and it can be helpful to you as well, because you can share those with people on campus and really build your support that way. Those chapter Hallmark Award entries are due January 19th. So for those of you who've asked questions about how you build that timeline, the recommendation at this point is to think about the Hallmark Award entry is due on January 19th. So that's kind of the end point of where you want to build back from. The project itself should be completed by December 31st. And then, I say the project, the writing is part of that, but that's just a few more weeks. And you can build back from there to this week and know, here's what we have to do, and here's our time frame. Again, and you can do it. So let's talk about Honors in Action. Just a minute. Honors in Action is one of the 2 chapter projects that we really hope that chapters will work on. With you as coaches, we've had that question as well, like how much can you do? We want you to teach and encourage and to be involved in the projects, not doing them for students, but really helping share your skills and knowing that you have students who are coming in and they're intelligent and they've got skills and they're obviously good students, but they may not know this process. They may not know the research process, for example, for Honors in Action. They may not know your college administrators and how to communicate with them and the kinds of things that you know how to do. So we want you to help coach them and encourage them. And I like to use an example. College football started last week, I guess weeks ago. And this is for Blake and my husband, Jeff, who are Razorbacks, go Hogs, woo pig suey. But I'm going to use Clemson University because I'm a Clemson Tiger. Dabo Swinney is the head coach there. And he recruits really good players, just the way you have students who are really good. They're coming in with skills. But he doesn't say to them, hey, you guys know how to play football. I'll see you on Saturday. No, he's going to spend his time honing their skills, teaching them new skills. And he doesn't do it alone. He has an offensive coordinator. He has a defensive coordinator, a whole bunch of assistant coaches. And we want you to know that you can use people on campus and in the community to be those coaches. Sometimes, you can say something to a team and they'll kind of listen to you, but if somebody comes in, another faculty member or an administrator or a community member and says the exact same thing, exact words, it's like, oh, we've never heard that before. Now we get it. So do that. And I'll give you some examples as I go through Honors in Action is where you might use some assistant coaches. So let's talk about this. We have a lot of resources. So for you, for the people who might be your assistant coaches, for your students, if you go to ptk.org/honors, we have all these resources for you so that you can take a look at Honors in Action in the process. And you have an Honors in Action workbook, which students can actually write in and keep their notes. We have a journaling guide. We have all the sources. Civic Scholar, the 2021 edition of Civic Scholar is out. And if you look at that, there are 18 examples of award-winning projects that are really different from one another, and chapters approach Honors in Action in different ways. So we encourage you to look at those, not because that's the only way you can do things, but so you can kind of see how different chapters approached the process, and you can get some ideas and your students can get some ideas there. And then we have the Honors Case Study Challenge, Research Edge, a lot of things that you can use. They are all online. So you can access them whether you're on campus, whether you're not, you're working virtually, whether your students are doing that, you can get these resources. So let's talk a little bit about them in the Honors in Action process. So think of Honors in Action, and I caught myself doing this when I did the first slide. Honors in Action is a holistic process. One of the things that advisors and students often do will say the action is the project. But that's not true. All of it's the project. So from the very beginnings of doing the academic investigation through the action, through the reflection, through turning in the Hallmark Award entry, all of those things we consider the project. And I think sometimes it helps, especially when you're building that timeline and you're getting ready to coach, to really see it that way so that you're not thinking, let's rush through this first part because we need to get to the action. That first part is vitally important in honors and action. So think of it holistically. The academic investigation is the cornerstone. It's the foundation of honors and action. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But the point of honors and action is really to fulfill the second part of Phi Theta Kappa's mission, to provide opportunities for college students to grow as scholars and leaders. So honors and action is all about intentional informed action or intentional informed service. That's where that academic investigation comes in. It's that we all do things from our heart that we love. And I saw Kelly Kennedy Everett there in a minute. I told a story one time about how every morning I walk and I count bunny rabbits because I live in a place that was the Katy Prairie and there's still rabbits all around. That's my heart. But if I really wanted to study something like that, I'd start looking at, well, what does a rabbit's habitat look like? And what happens when that habitat's encroached? And that's what I mean by informed. It's not just looking at those cute little bunnies. My dogs look at them in an entirely different way, varied viewpoints. And what does it mean when something like that happens? And I do the research to consider how I might help those rabbits beyond thinking that they're pretty adorable. So it's that informed action, it's informed service, and we want students to think globally and act locally, however they define that. So these issues in the honor study topic, it's global in nature, the themes are global in nature, but most chapters work locally, whether that's in person, whether it's online in some way, whether your chapter decides that, we're going to do this all virtually, which is so possible with honors and action. It's really limitless. You may decide that your community is actually everybody who's on Instagram, for example, or who's on TikTok. You have to define that as a team. But that's that we look at honors and action that way. You start with the honor study topic. I mentioned that's the foundation. The very first step is to take a look at the 2020-2021 honors program guide, which introduces the honor study topic and also has a lot of honors and action resources in it. And it was one of the resources that you can find at ptk.org/honors. So you want to take a look at the honor study topic to the 7th generation, inheritance and legacy, and select as a team, select one of the themes. There are 7 themes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. And then the other thing that I want to mention in looking at this project holistically, check out the honors and action planning and judging rubric. It's on pages 22 through 24 of the honors program guide. You can also find it online with the Hallmark Award, awards information. But have that rubric with the team right from the beginning so that you get every element of the process in as you work through your project development. Let's talk a little bit about, on the next slide, our foundations with how you begin honors and action. And I had a question that was really interesting about how you get people enthusiastic about research. I mean, especially when it's co-curricular research. And I think there are several things. One, you don't have to call it research. I like to joke that it's crime scene investigation without the crime, that it's exploration, that it's, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? I mean, there are lots of ways to look at how you really work through that process. And the other thing is to make sure as students are choosing their theme as it relates to the honor study topic, to make sure they pick something about which they're passionate. I mean, there's just nothing worse than having to work for 3 months on something that you just can't stand, that doesn't interest you. So you want to make sure that they're picking something that they know they can work with. And I recommend that you, even if you've got a team of 2 that has a disagreement, that you have them come to consensus about what they're going to do. When chapters vote, very often you lose the people who voted no for something, who said they didn't want to do it because they're no longer interested. And so you really want people to be curious. You want them to be passionate. I like that Adrian Barkley said that, it's a curiosity project. It is. That's, you're feeding people's curiosity, which is why they have to be interested from the beginning in what they're doing. So you want to have them begin that investigation, that exploration, that curiosity project. You never even have to mention the word research if you don't want to. It's all good. Sometimes words matter in motivating people. For the beginning of Honors in Action, you want to come up with some research objectives. And we know that sometimes that seems arduous to chapters because they're not thinking of some of the simple things they do that are part of the objectives part. For example, setting up an Honors in Action team can be an objective. Inviting a research librarian to work with you on your academic investigation, that can be part of the objectives. Making sure you have 8 meaningful academic sources to use when you get to the Hallmark Awards. Writing can be an objective. So think about the things your team already does or would have to do, the steps that the team would have to take through the exploration process, and work those into objectives as a team. And your team may not know how to do this, and they may not know how to really set measurable objectives. And that may be something where either you can work with them on that, or bring in one of your assistant coaches, bring in somebody on campus who's really good at objectives and helping people set objectives. That may be someone from the student development team on your campus, for example, who works with that all the time, or someone who teaches, freshman orientation courses, and have that person come through and help the team set its objectives. The same thing with a research question. You want a research question that's going to guide the team's investigation. And that can be daunting as well. We had especially one question about that how, that can take so long to do. We don't want you to get stuck on the research question. So I'm going to give you an example and then a suggestion for that assistant coach. Our current honors program guide, for example, in theme 6, which is perceptions of progress. If you look, there's an overarching question, and there is for each theme. It helps you decide whether you're in the right theme when you're working. And the overarching question is, how do inherited understandings of progress guide the future? Your team's research question could be something as simple as, and I say simple just in terms of developing your research question, not in terms of answering this, but how do inherited understandings of progress have an impact on the debate about critical race theory? In other words, how does what we already know, what we've heard in our lifetimes, what we've studied, have an impact on that? And what are the different points of view? To do something that's not controversial. But that's one where you'd find a lot of sources. That research question's very similar to what the overarching question is. It's just narrowed with what the students really want to look at. So it doesn't have to be an arduous thing, but I recommend bringing someone in from the English department or history or social sciences or education. And they work with developing research questions all the time. Find those people on campus who are just finishing their dissertations or their theses, who have just finished having to do a research question, and have them work with the team to develop that question. Bring in that assistant coach, the expert, to do that. Academic sources, we have a lot of really good guides, pages 25 through 27 of the Honors Program Guide. Research Edge has a whole section on academic sources and what they mean. This is also where you can bring your research librarian in. I just always tout working with research librarians. Bring that Honors Program Guide in, bring the research question in. If you've got that, research librarians know where the databases are. A lot of times you can use Google Scholar or Futurity or other databases online. Everything can be online. But research librarians are going to really know how to help your students hone their investigation. And they can be coaches as well. So please, bring them into, and all of those people are collaborators. You can have research collaborations, investigative collaborators, curiosity collaborators. And so those people can count as collaborators. Collaborators are not just for the action piece of the Honors in Action project. And then you want to develop your research conclusions, and that's where you get to the action piece. It's from your research conclusions, and that's where you move to the action. One more thing about the research part, because there's so much of this is based in the investigation part. When your team picks a theme, remember that they're always studying the honor study topic. So when I mentioned theme 6, perceptions of progress, that's a lens through which your team can look at to the 7th generation, inheritance and legacy. It's inheritance and legacy that's the thing, not just the theme. And so that's one of the really common mistakes chapters make. They get to the theme and then they forget that there's an overarching honor study topic. So you want to make sure that they view the theme as the lens, the honor study topic as the thing. We had a question about what could the action be? It can be anything: traditional service, an awareness campaign, an advocacy campaign, explaining why you're advocating, your team's advocating for something, anything that is directly tied to your research conclusions. That's the key, is tying it directly to that. So that's Honors in Action in a nutshell. I'm sure we probably have some more questions, and I know that Rob has some insight into working as a student and as alum with Honors in Action, and I'm going to send it back to Joe.
Thank you so much, Susan. That was great. And Susan did work in a lot of answers to your preliminary questions there. And so if you have any additional questions, though, I see Blake is tackling some in the chat. I also want to bring Rob in. Susan mentioned Rob a minute ago. And so Rob, could you talk a little bit about what HIA has done for your chapter members, the advisors, the college, the community, and sort of include in your answer how our advisors can benefit from the Honors in Action process?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that even though I had experience with PTK, Honors in Action was one of the scariest things when I was voluntold as an advisor. So you are not alone. But it's one of those things that sitting with the students and helping them realize that even at the community college level, we see in them the capacity to be academic scholars, that we don't see the stigma some people place on community college, that we believe in them, that they are leaders. We should know that they graduate at better rates than those who start at four-year institutions. And we kind of start with that. We start with the fact of, you're not starting from a lower place. You're here because we believe in you. You're here because you earn this. And we start as a group. We usually sit with a reading circle. And for our newest members, we sit with a reading circle with Civic Scholar or an excerpt from Civic Scholar, because they need to see how other students have done it. Not necessarily what my group did, not necessarily what another group did. So we'll pick 2 or 3. If you got 2 or 3 members, we'll give out 2 or 3 and they'll each share what they read. Or if you've got 9 members, each one of them will read a different one, or they'll break it into 2 groups and they'll bring it back. We do the same thing with the study guide and the themes. Everyone does a little bit of reading. If you've got 2 people, you kind of split them in half. Sometimes the advisor reads one. This is what I got out of it. And you listen to them talk and you listen to the conversation unfold. And you'll start to see, after you've done this a few years, the one that they talk the most about tends to be the one they end up picking, whether or not they're at a consensus yet. But you'll see that it sparks this curiosity and this confusion and this, we can really do it. But they've seen what other people have done. The biggest warning I would give you is don't let them put the horse before the cart. Don't let them think of what they're going to physically do as the big showy piece of it, because then you kind of put these boundaries on the research part of it and it's less inspired. And that kind of makes the research laborious. And so it's one of those things, you can go on this rabbit trail and all of a sudden this thing can manifest. The other part that was really hard for me as an advisor was being willing to let the students fail. Our students have learned more from the times they haven't been able to reach the goal and reflecting on that and troubleshooting. Things like COVID happened. Things like coordinating 4 campuses happen. Things like trying to meet urban settings with rural campuses in order to coordinate stuff when you've got power going out or flooding on campuses. All these things happen, just like in life, just like in jobs. And what they're getting is these real life experience of, okay, how do I press on? How do we take what we've been given and how do we move forward with our goals? And so the first thing we do is it's okay if things change. Failure is part of the process. There's a place in the rubric where it says, did you meet this or did you not? What happened? It doesn't mean you failed the project if it doesn't go how you plan. Anybody working in higher ed knows that we don't necessarily get there the first route we try. So that's important. But the other piece of HIA that we've kind of added, for those of you who don't know, one of my jobs, I do a lot of them, is an HR analyst and a policy analyst. And so we have our students keep a notebook throughout the whole year of everything they do with Phi Theta Kappa, every leadership role they take on with HIA. And at the end of our doing our honors and action write-up, I sit down and do a one-on-one resume consult with them and help them take those things and build it into a powerful resume that makes them competitive in a way that can manipulate applicant tracking systems, that can get their things on the top of the deck, things that you learn in Employment Edge or Transfer Edge. But we sit down and we do that as part of the debriefing process. So one, having them keep notes of everything they do and you keeping notes in the background to help them. 2, having them reflect on what they got out of it, because you need to hear those wins too, because there will be days when you feel overwhelmed and like it's too much. And hearing those student wins connects you to the core of why you're doing it. The other thing is, know that the work we did 3 years ago is what led us to the victories we had today. So even when you feel like you're not making progress or you're not winning the awards, I promise you some of the decisions, like bringing in a research librarian. We include that professional development. It started as inviting our research librarian to the regional thing to present as a keynote speaker. Our members go, hey, can you do this for the chapter? And it's been part of professional development for our scholars ever since. The students did the ask, and now that person is the director of libraries for our institution. And so we've got another administrator that's in a leadership role advocating for them and giving them professional development. And then we've got students that have graduated and gone on to work for them. And so it's one of those things that it's not just forming the connections to help them as students. Some of them, it's getting their foot into a door for a job in a future. So that's what I have on that so far.
Thank you, Rob. Great overview on the earnest and action process and sort of managing that process. I'm going to ask one final question on earnest and action before we move to college project. And it's, what if a chapter is stuck in the research phase and members are having trouble determining their course of action from following the research? This is for Susan or Rob.
Want me to start, Rob? And if you have
You
comments.
go ahead. You go ahead and start. I'll tag.
Well, that question reminds me, I don't know if you ever read Matt Grain's cartoons, you know, that life is hell, school is hell. And one of his cartoons in School is Hell was of a graduate student who's trying to finish a dissertation, but I'll just read one more book. You know, that's where you can coach. At some point, they're done. You know, they can only do so much. You only have so much time. They probably have more than they actually need. And if they don't, they can also shift. An example is a chapter, a number of honor study topics ago. They were studying Southern symbols. They were all interested in the arts, and they researched for a few weeks and they just couldn't find what they needed. And so they found this one reference, I think even in a footnote, but I won't swear to that, where it said that the arts are social capital. And they started talking about that one idea and they shifted. And when they looked at the arts as capital, they found all sorts of sources. So, you know, don't be afraid to talk things through, brainstorm and say, you know what, maybe we need to shift a little bit. You know, like Rob mentioned, it's not a linear process. You know, sometimes you have to go back. So, if you've got 8 really good academic sources and you've got information from which you can draw research conclusions, you're probably done. You've probably got enough to set up that action. If the team doesn't have those 8 sources, I would have them keep looking at footnotes or bring that research librarian back and say, you know, we're stuck. Where else can we go? Can you help us figure out where we go from here? But at some point, it's really easy to keep looking at sources and keep looking at sources, but you really need 8 meaningful, strong academic sources for honors in action. You don't absolutely need more than that.
Say one of the other things that I think is important to remember, and I try and remember this every day while I'm working on my dissertation, is that you can't do it all in one thing. And so acknowledging that for these students, like, you don't expect them to heal the world, but where's the one piece where you can lead from where you are? What is within your capacity right now where you're at? That's one thing. The other thing is to look at resources beyond just books and academic articles. There are subject matter expertise out there. And if they're getting too much written inflow, maybe we need to be like, what name keeps reoccurring? Somebody want to shoot them an email to see if they want to answer some questions? I know that whether it's HighFlex course design model, we're now in contact with people that designed that course design model just because the name kept appearing and somebody decided to shoot an email. And so it's one of those things that sometimes being brave enough to do the ask, or find the TED Talks by the person, or find an article where they presented somewhere. Sometimes they need a video inflow to take a break from all that reading. And the other word that we're all tired of hearing, I'm sure, is the ability to pivot. Practicing that ability to pivot is life skills. And we've got to do it as advisors, and we've got to support them as they do it. But it's one of those things, that's something that's directly transferable to their life today. And so the ability to pivot and to lead from where they are two things that it's hard not to learn those pieces as you go through this process.
Thank you, Rob and Susan. Those are great answers, and for a very thorough overview of Honors in Action. I want to move over now to College Project so that you can get some good advice about that. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, and she's going to talk to you about the College Project process.
All right, thanks, Jo. Yes, we really are so excited that we've got a great, diverse group of advisors joining us. We know that there's all kinds of experience levels here, but we have a lot of brand new advisors. So we don't want to take anything for granted, and we want to make sure that everyone understands the different purposes of our 2 primary projects that you'll do as on your way to becoming a 5-star chapter. So College Project, the primary purpose is not simply to provide a service or an activity that benefits the college. It really is larger than that. It's more about building that supportive working relationship between the chapter and the college administration. We want the college president and other top administrators to see Phi Theta Kappa as a true partner or an ally to helping them accomplish what's the priorities for the college, what their overall mission is. And there, believe me, is a place for the Phi Theta Kappa chapter to make a real difference in helping that college meet their priorities. And so that can at first sound a little bit intimidating, but we want you to know that the project doesn't have to be a huge project in and of itself. It really is about strengthening that relationship first and foremost. And I know one of the preliminary questions was about, does it have to be a project that goes for a certain time frame? It can be a one-day event. It might be something that is done. Maybe there's some prep for it that takes a month or so, but the project itself is just a one-day event. That's fine. It can be something that crosses over an entire semester or even beyond that. But just like Honors in Action, you're running on a timeline of the calendar year. And so January through December is when, anytime during that time frame, is when your college project is done. And I will go ahead and say that, while the time has passed for this year, looking ahead, it may be something that your chapter wants to plan to do a college project in the spring, and then focus the rest of the year, that summer and fall, on your Honors in Action project instead of doing them both at the same time. So that's totally up to the chapter, but just food for thought there. It is part of the 5-star plan. It's at the level 4. And I think it's important to note that this didn't start as a Hallmark Award. It's really only been in the last decade or so that it was a Hallmark Award. But again, it was part of that 5-star plan because we knew that Phi Theta Kappa chapters really do rely on that strong administration support. And so that's That really is the heart of it. So we don't, I mentioned that it's not just a service or activity that you do on behalf of the college. It really is a joint project. We want it to be something that starts with a discussion and, certainly taking a moment to help your chapter understand what the mission statement and what the priorities of the college are at this point in time, what maybe there's a strategic plan that they can look at just so that they're familiar and can have more of a informed discussion with the college administration. That's certainly going to impress them if they've taken the time to, find that out before they meet with the president. And if you're not able to meet with the president, another top administrator is completely fine. That's just something that you would talk about in the entry so that the judge understands, that was not logistically possible. I know there was a question, and I may go ahead and answer it now about, maybe your chapter is rebuilding, you're just kind of getting restarted with recruiting new members. And so you want to set the expectations for this project, maybe not to be very, maybe super layered and super complex, but something that may be on a more simple level. And that's totally fine for maybe the chapter advisor to have that conversation with the president before the chapter meets. And you can even go to the meeting, with the chapter. We recommend that there's only maybe a couple chapter members that participate in that meeting so that it's not so overwhelming and not so difficult to schedule as well. But setting expectations for that is perfectly fine. The scope of the project is always at the discretion of the chapter and the college administration. That should be a mutual decision on what is best for the chapter's resources as well as the college's resources at this moment in time. It's really important to note that this is not based on a PTK program. So let me say it again. It really is anything that relates to the college's mission. So don't feel like that you're tying this into the honor study topic. These really are two separate projects because their origins are very different. Honor study topic is driving your honors in action project, and your college and mission statement is driving the college project. And then one thing that we have found that I know a lot of chapters may overlook in their process is the communication. They may they do a great job of meeting with the administration first to get that project going, but then the communication falls away after that. And we want you to, again, go back to the main purpose, and that's really understanding that the project is all about that relationship building. And so communication is at the heart of that. And maybe during that initial discussion, you can talk about what's the best way to keep the president or other administrator updated throughout the process. And then of course, after the project has been completed, you want to have that final wrap up and share those outcomes and maybe even what remains to be done. As Rob said so eloquently, maybe everything is not accomplished that was on the original goal list. And so that's an important part of that relationship, to own up to that and really, discover together a path forward of how that can be accomplished. So just like with Honors in Action, we do want you to understand that the rubrics that we have for both Honors in Action and College Project are not just for the judges, but they really are a blueprint for you while you're planning and implementing the project. So it's best to look there first, because that really will save you so much time in the end when you're getting to making those journal entries and understanding what you're going to need, those kind of details that you'll need to wrap up that Hallmark Award entry. So there's really primarily four categories for the rubrics for any college project. The presentation is all about the spelling and grammar of the entry. So think about preparation and planning. Leadership development is the college project's answer to that investigation or research part. Whatever you've decided on, there's probably going to be some knowledge or skills that need to be developed or honed in order to implement that project well. And so take the time, that's intentional for the chapter members to do that and to, write about that in their entry of how they prepared themselves. And then, of course, we don't want the chapter to feel like they're doing everything on their own. It's perfectly fine to collaborate with other student groups on campus. Again, this is a joint project with the college, so you're probably going to be working with other departments, and that's totally okay. We want the chapter members, of course, to have a leadership role, but they certainly are not on their own to do all of the project themselves. And then being sure to in the very beginning, understand the ways and plan out the ways you're going to track your progress, both quantitative as well as qualitative results, so that you can have that not only to share in the Hallmark Award entry, but again, to go back to the administration and share with them. All right, so I think at this point, it may be a good chance for Rob to kind of jump in and share more about his chapter's college project. And I know, this is something that you guys have won awards in the past for different college projects, and, just talking about what it's meant to your campus and their the chapter's relationship with the administration.
Sure. I was going to say, part of it was luck. I'm going to be honest. When I was hired 7 days before our new president into my full-time role. So I ended up in all the orientation things with him. And so he would find me on the quad. And when the students were working the welcome week table, we had some very outgoing scholars that year. And one of them just goes, okay, Dr. Torrance, when are you coming to a meeting? And he goes, when are you inviting me? And so that's kind of how it started. And so within that time window, he started to learn more about College Project, and he got handed Achieve the Dream by our system office as something that was going to be an initiative. And he leaned over to me at one point and goes, I need some opinionated students to share their voice. Do you think your members would help? And I kind of chuckled and I go, you've heard about College Project, right? And so the next thing I know, Karina and a couple other of our officers were setting a meeting with him to really talk about developing a strategic plan to amplify student voices across the institution. And so he really wanted students to have an entire team as part of the Achieve the Dream network. And PTK answered that call and brought in other students, just as any other team at the institution was involved in that strategic plan. The first year they were like, we can't do all this in 1 year. We've got 4 campuses. This is what's going on. And so he goes, set up a real strategic plan that's going to carry you all through the next 3 years, through turnover, through graduations, through incoming new members. And that's what the first group did. And they didn't feel like they accomplished a whole lot, but it was the first time our members had really developed a strategic plan with training with our organizational development leadership team, with our institutional research team, with our marketing team. And so they laid out a 3-year strategic plan to get input from students on all 4 campuses over the next 3 years, which is the window for Achieve the Dream. Now, all of this is going well, and you turn over the things, and each new group of members gets new professional development. And we usually do our meeting around January or February with the president to set up the goals for the next year. He goes, remember, this is a fluid document. Remember, things can change. And then, of course, COVID hits, right as we're approaching the last couple of years. And so the students found ways through working with institutional research and effectiveness to design digital surveys, to collect information from across 3 different campuses and feed that to not just our administration, but our system office. So suddenly students that wouldn't have had a voice in this process, and they had a voice, but also they were very intentional about going beyond PTK, to invite the friends that they met outside of PTK to share their voice, to going to the athletes to bring it up. And they were make sure that they shared out the research on their social media. They were like, Facebook's great. However, not too many of the students are following the school's Facebook page, and they're really not going to do a survey just based on that. So they got on their networks, they got in their Discord, they got in TikTok, they shared it out. They did door prizes. They went and collect door prizes from different communities, get people engaged. They brought meals over to the athletes at the athlete storm to get them to answer the survey and brought them dinner. Like they came up with solutions, but they also had time to sit down and get professional development like they were a business partner with the administrators across the campus. And I'm going to be honest, a big part of that is one, when you get a new president or you get a new administrator, create a welcome pack for them. Create some type of onboarding as here's who we are, here's what we're trying to do. And have that in your back pocket, because the earlier you get them started, the more involved they're going to be. Our president was a Paragon president and is also a member of the president's board. Now he is very much a champion of PTK and will send out a notice for any project saying this is a presidential initiative. And these are our partners in this. And so they get the same respect of any other stakeholder that comes to them. So those are important things that helped us.
Thank you, Rob and Jennifer. That was a great overview of College Project. I know we're getting ready to wrap things up, but I'm going to ask one question to Jennifer that we got preliminary question. Our chapter did a project in spring 2019 that went really well. Is it okay to do the same project again in spring 2022?
That is a great question, and it's one that we get often. I think the most important thing is, again, going back to the purpose of the college project, and that's the relationship with the administration. And so that initial meeting is so critical to really determining what the project is going to be. So it's true that many times a chapter may sit down with the president and the president throws the ball back in their corner about what the chapter's ideas are for the college project. And if that's the case, then certainly you can bring up a past project maybe that needs to, still allow the students to follow the same steps of the college project so that they can write about, and not miss any points on the rubrics. But it can be something that is a perennial project, the one that's been done before, but again, it's new for these students. So you want to make sure they're gaining those skills building opportunities, just like the other students did back in the very first iteration of the project. But again, it needs to be something that the chapter is not deciding on their own, but they're really allowing the college administration to be part of that discussion and at least give them an opportunity to share their ideas before something is decided upon.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, sure.
And did you have additional slides you were going to share?
Well, I was just going to, kind of wrap up with this. And, this, again, we want the college project to if it hasn't been done in the past, this is certainly a case of building a strong foundation with the administration, knowing that the chapter probably goes to the administration to ask for help, to ask for, the administrators to attend an induction ceremony or to help with sending students to PTK events or an all-state academic team ceremony. So there's a lot to be gained on both sides. And we really, again, just want to stress to the college that it's not just about what they can do for the chapter, but it's what the chapter can also do on behalf of the college to raise their profile as well. And just one final point, because I know we've gotten this before, and some of you in our audience may be thinking, okay, we're going to really struggle to get both projects done. And, maybe we've done a project that we thought of as our college project, and we don't really have time to do another one. And I just want to share a couple of tips with you on that, is to still use this opportunity to meet with the administration, to at least start that dialogue. There may be something that you can still do in the fall that maybe won't be a super comprehensive project, but it will definitely help the chapter to establish or build upon that relationship with the administration, or at the very least to get a head start for 2022. So I will leave it there. Joe, unless you had any other questions, or Rob, if you had something else to add.
I was just going to say that if you're on your own as an advisor, or if you're both paired with two new advisors, don't be scared to reach out to other advisors in your region or in your area, or even me. We've all been there, and some of us have teams, some of us don't have teams, but you have a support system and a network around you that is here to support you too. So.
Yes. Well said.
Thank you, Rob. Jennifer, really quickly, if you, your administrator asks you to work with them for your college project, but you don't have any officers, can any members do that and it still be considered a college project?
Yes, great question. And that is absolutely the case. You know, you don't have to have a formal leadership title. You know, your members certainly don't in order to get involved and help out. You know, we know that some of you may again be in that restarting phase, and it is perfectly fine for any member and to even reach out to another student group to say, hey, this is something maybe that we could do together, and kind of build those bridges there, because that's another great recruitment opportunity for the chapter and to really raise the visibility of the chapter on your campus as well. So don't hesitate to reach out and work with other groups. And, you know, maybe that's your plan to get officers or to get members interested in serving as chapter officers. So the more they get involved, you know, hopefully they'll see the benefits of having those leadership opportunities to share on their scholarship applications or in job interviews or their resume.
Thank you so much, Jennifer and Susan and Rob, for all of you for joining our panel. Thank you so much to the advisors for attending and all of the great questions you've been asking. The student engagement team has been really busy in the chat. Jennifer has some email addresses up there. If you feel like you did have questions that didn't get answered or didn't get covered, you're always welcome to reach out to Susan or Jennifer or Patty and Ryan with any of the questions that you have, or any of us on the student engagement team, and we can get those questions answered for you. Having said that, I think we have a little bit of fun to end things off, so I'm going to turn it over to Blake and let him end the show.
That was so fantastic. One of the things I love about PTK and working with y'all is that we are such a window into the student success movement, into opportunity, into helping people achieve their goals. And I'm already, you can tell in the questions that people are asking where projects are going, and they go in so many different directions. So the thing that I would say, because we have some new advisors on here, there are those of you who will say, I'm going to do this perfect project and check every box, and I appreciate it. And we may honor you on stage at the Community College Oscars in Denver, as I call our Hallmark Award. but to be a 5-star chapter is a big deal. And for that, you need to submit college project and submit honors in action. Even if you say, we researched this theme, we asked some good questions, here's our sources, and we did a small project, but it wasn't quite what we hoped for, and we're coming back next year, you can be 5-star. So whatever you do, set a goal now with your team, even if it's just 1 or 2 people, we are going to submit by January, I forget the exact date, but January 2022, we are going to submit those hallmarks and be a 5-star chapter. And we want to be there to support you every step of the way. Don't hesitate. Any member of the student engagement team, we're always connected. So like if you happen to have Susan's email and you say, hey, I want college project advice, she can give you advice, but she can funnel you to somebody else to get, to talk. Whatever you need as you work through the projects, we're here to help. So having said that, we do we get to do our giveaway and give away some prizes to 5 people. So I am going to ask, and I'll go, I guess I'll go Joe, Susan, Jennifer, and then back again. And I'm just going to ask y'all to give me a number between 4 and 204, and I will check and see who is our lucky winner. So starting with you, Joe, can you throw out a number between 4 and 204?
23.
All right, 23 is, sorry, y'all, I'm getting to it. I like to maximize the suspense. Is Deborah Lohman from Scott Community College. Congratulations, Deborah. And now I'm going to throw it to Susan Edwards. Give me a number.
88.
88, scrolling down in the Excel spreadsheet to 88. Linda Ruthroff from Bellingham Technical College. Congratulations, Linda. And now, Jennifer Stanford, a number, please.
199.
You're going to make me scroll all the way down. All right. I'm going to 199. That is right before 200, right? Okay, here it is. Lasha Bledsoe from Tougaloo College. Congratulations. All right, Joe, coming back to you. Hit me with the number.
17.
All right, 17. Melanie Morgan from Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. Congratulations, Melanie. And Susan, I know you're humanities like me, but can you remember at least one?
I'll just cut my last number in half, 44.
44. That's the 4 followed by a 4, if I'm right. Okay. And we've got Sarah Byers from San Jacinto Community College in my hometown of Houston, Texas. I promise you it was not rigged, but go Astros. We love working with y'all. We love partnering with y'all. I promise you, as you move forward in your projects, you'll have questions. What about this? Can we collaborate? You know, maybe you want some insight into some of the themes. Our entire student engagement team is here to support you and help you every step of the way, knowing that, and one of our biggest pleasures every year is seeing the hundreds of college projects and hundreds of honors and action projects at community colleges all over the country and the world. It is absolutely amazing to think about the collective difference that we're all making when we engage these projects. So start, take action, finish, and know that we love working with you and partnering with you. And having said that, I'll close it out and say thank y'all so much for being here. And we'll see y'all at the next one and hopefully engage with y'all online. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm not sure who's recording, but you may want to end it. Sometimes if you leave before you end it, it goes away.
That would
I
suck
can-
if we lost it.
I can hit stop recording.
Okay. We had that happen in a graduate class